Morning, ECAC hockey fans, and welcome to the latest edition of Coffee with a Coach. Nick Sczerbinski joined today by Brown men's hockey head coach Brendan Whittet. Coach, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I like coffee with a coach too. It's got a good ring to it.
The next step is to get a sponsor for it. So if you know anybody down in your world, let me know. But we're looking forward to getting you on here and talking about your career as a player and a coach in the ECAC and at Brown. And just start, you guys had a great weekend last week, and obviously tough battle with Boston College during the week, but to shut out Holy Cross and then get a big Mayor's Cup win at Providence, what does that do for your team as you continue down into the ECAC schedule this year?
Well, I mean, it's nice to be rewarded. I thought we had actually played some pretty good hockey. Unfortunately, it was a little inconsistent early. We've had a really hard schedule too. I mean, we've already played on the road at Harvard, who's an outstanding hockey team, at Cornell, who's obviously an outstanding hockey team. We played Quinnipiac here. We've played at Providence, who was a top 10 team, and we just played Boston College. So, it hasn't been, a stretch that has been easy in terms of the teams we've played, but I think we've definitively grown as a team, and and as such, we were able to win 2 games. Would have been nice to get that third on Tuesday, but I thought we played really good hockey. We just we got to find a way to score a little bit more.
And doesn't slow down on your non-conference schedule. Obviously, you get 2 more on the road, this time at LIU, and then your next 2 non-conference games at UMass, at Merrimack. So you didn't do yourself any favors there, but also give yourself a good challenge to compete with the top of the top.
Good point, Nick. I don't know. I usually, Steve Hagwell, we look at those schedules ahead of time. It seems like we're on the road a lot to start the year in the ECAC. And I didn't do us any favors by scheduling 2 this weekend and then coming back, and it's Saturday, Sunday against LIU at LIU, and they obviously have been a pretty good team this year. They've lost some close games. They've battled some good teams. They haven't been at home a lot, which they just were this past weekend, and they beat Ohio State. So for us, we're going to have to be on top of it. And then the difficult thing is we come back and we're into league right before our exams, and we're up in the North Country, which is always hard.
And you know some of that better than most, obviously being a player at Brown as well, graduating in 94. You went through a few different stints as an assistant at different schools, starting as a volunteer at Brown, going to Colby, coming back to Brown for a year. And before we get deeper into the hockey, I noticed you were the head golf coach at Brown when you were the assistant. What was that?
I was the head golf coach, and I don't golf. So it was one of those ones. It was one of those ones at the time when I was an assistant. It was the pay wasn't tremendous to be an assistant, in college hockey. So for me to supplement my income, the men's head golf coach had always gone hand in hand with being an assistant for the men's ice hockey team. So I was the golf coach, and it's hilarious because I put it on my resume, Division I, golf coach, and the guys in the team used to call me the golf chauffeur because I literally just drive the van. So it was one of those ones where I tried as hard as I could, but I had never picked up the sport, and shame on me. It would be great to have have the ability to be able to play on the weekends and play with some of my buddies, but it just never materialized. Now it's too late in life.
I'm sure it's still at least a little bit of a challenge as a coach to be able to try to coach these athletes in a sport you don't know. There still must be a coaching element, right? Maybe not coaching the sport.
Yeah, there's an organizational element, and I was very young at the time. So for me, it was, for me to have the opportunity, even though it was a sport that I didn't really know that well, it gave me a chance in terms of organizational skills, setting up trips, keeping the guys organized, making sure there was discipline, getting them to the course, making sure the schedules are all set. So there was a lot that went into that, and I had to recruit, believe it or not. And it was one of those ones where, I had to tell probably a lot of fibs, but the guys never saw me with a club in my hand. So I think they figured it out pretty quick that I actually couldn't hit a ball. So, but it was, the experience was great. I wouldn't have wanted to do it. I would have eventually had to pick it up if it would have lasted for more than that year.
Yeah, golf coach not necessarily in your future. After that year at Brown as the assistant, going on to Dartmouth, as an assistant coach there for 11 years. So really a longtime ECAC, hockey member in any capacity before coming back July of 2009 to Brown. In terms of the league, playing in the league, coaching at a couple of different schools in the league, just can you elaborate a little bit on the growth of what you've seen from these programs throughout our league as time has gone on?
I mean, even when I played, I mean, it was the best experience of my life. I mean, making the decision to come to Brown, and I had some different options and different opportunities, but making the decision to come to Brown was the best decision I ever made in my life. I had a great experience as a player here. I played for Bob Gaudet, who was, and still remains an unbelievable mentor to me, a second father figure, and a guy that I respect and care for deeply, that, gave me the opportunity to come here and be a student athlete. And, I look back on those days, and it's crazy how long ago it was now. But in terms of my experience, it was an unbelievable experience as a player. And we, at the time, the league was a good league. I mean, we played in the NCAA tournament. We were in we were in the first ECAC Final Four up in Lake Placid, and then we were in the second. The first one, we knocked out a really good, elite level Harvard team, and lost to another elite level team in Clarkson my junior year. I think that was '93 maybe. But we played in the NCAA tournament. I played in the old Joe Louis Arena, and for us, I cherish those moments. Those teammates, the guys that I played with, I still remain my best friends to this day. And I've seen a transformation in the league in terms of even when I was at Dartmouth and the type of players we were able to get. I mean, we probably had, 5, 6, 7 guys who went on to play in the NHL, and not just a cup of coffee. They played, they won Stanley Cups, and they played a long time, that experience up at Dartmouth, and I got married right before I went up there. Both my kids were born up in the Hanover area and at Dartmouth Hitchcock in the hospital there, and really, really liked my time there. We had good teams, but more importantly, it was just a great community up there. It was a caring community. Again, I can't speak loudly enough in terms of the type of players we had in the league that we played in at that time. And what I've seen is teams that have won national championships, from our league, and teams that are constantly in that mix. And there's some consistency with some of the teams. We'd like to be one of those teams. But it's not easy. It takes a lot of work and a lot of effort, and quite honestly, a lot of luck at an Ivy. We're able to get and string together some good classes in a row, and I think we're on our way. Again, I've been here for 14 years. We've been up and down. We've had some great years where 3 of the years we were in the ECAC Final Four. One year we're in the championship game. We're right on the cusp of being an NCAA tournament team. But we've had some other years that have been interspersed where, we haven't been that competitive. And from my perspective, I'd like to try and get that consistency. Brown's such a unbelievable place and a great city, and with administration and people that deeply care about hockey, and in a state that's a hockey state. I'm lucky enough I grew up in Rhode Island, and I spread my wings a little bit, but I guess I didn't go very far or very long. So, Rhode Island's a funny state because you can just run into, my wife thinks it's crazy because I was lucky enough. I met her she was interning in the sports communication department at Brown for Chris Hum. And I was a volunteer at that time. I just graduated, didn't really know what the hell I was going to do in life. I mean, knew that I had an inkling towards teaching, and always thought I would be a teacher in some way, shape, or form, and kind of fell into the coaching aspect. And I was at home, and Coach Gaudet said, "Hey, we need a volunteer. Something you want to do?" And they got me hooked. But even better, I was able to meet my wife. And like I said, from there, she will chuckle because you could be out anywhere, and you'll see somebody you grew up with, or somebody you went to high school with, or it's small state, man. So
I can attest to that because I grew up, born and raised in Cranston. So
that's right. Even better.
So there's a connection that we didn't even think was going to happen. But you segued perfectly, because I, as someone who played in Rhode Island and played against Mount St. Charles, I have some haunting memories from the chicken wire fence at that rink. Excuse me. But one of the better memories, and one of the ones I wanted to ask you about, was, playing against and being able to meet Bill Belisle, and what the experience of playing for him was like.
Oh, I mean,
being a legend.
Bill, yeah, I mean, legend in every way, shape, or form. I mean, he was a wonderful man. He was a caring guy. He cared deeply about his players. He'd challenge you, and he was a perfectionist in what he wanted. And sometimes that's hard when you're 14 years old and you got a grizzled, legendary coach in your face, and telling you to do it again and again and again. There were moments that were challenging, obviously, but my experience there was second to none. I grew a lot as a player. I grew a lot as a person. Mount St. Charles was the perfect fit for me at that time. I mean, it wasn't easy. I grew up in Riverside, Rhode Island. Before I could drive, my uncle was a teacher up at Burrville High School and used to drop me off at 6 a.m. Well, drop off at 6 a.m, 6:30 in the morning, I would be in the rink, and I'd be in the rink skating just to get in some extra skill work prior to the school day starting. And I used to go out with Pete Belisle, and Pete's was the youngest son of Bill, and Pete was a grade older than me, but we'd go out there and then you'd pray that Coach Bly wouldn't open that door, because even though you were hacking around out there, oh man, if you weren't doing it right, like it was just chaos. So experience was great. I have so many stories, like, and the ones that you read about, they're probably true, in terms of, you'll lose and are you skating when you get back? Usually, and you don't play, you could win a game and not play a good game or a good period. And man, you were dreading that Monday when it came around, because you were going to skate, and you were going to skate for the amount of time that he deemed that you weren't good as a team. So yeah, you grew up pretty fast. I love the way that he coached. I try and bring some elements that Bill had in terms of his accountability and the way he treated everybody exactly the same. It didn't matter if you were a superstar on the team or a guy that was a JV player. He tried to get the best out of everyone. And I bring those elements. I try to, I have a lot of energy and a lot of passion, specifically for Rhode Island hockey, but more specifically Brown University. I mean, I lucky enough to go here and was an assistant here for volunteer for 2 years after, came back for another year, and I've been back here for 14 years now. So a majority of my adult life has been spent at Brown. So it's a place that I love, a place that's made me who I am and given me everything that I have, and I'm forever grateful to be able to sit as a head coach at my alma mater, and that's the situation I don't take very lightly. Like I want our alums to feel a sense of pride, and when we put on the jersey, we need to play a certain way, and by and large, I think I can get that out of the guys. I think we have gotten it out of the guys. There's been years that have been more successful than others, but the guys, when they put on that jersey, I wore it. I walked the hallways here. I know the professors here. They're going to wear that thing with pride, and they're going to play with a lot of energy and a lot of passion for Brown and for representing all those who came before. So again, I love the place. I'm getting older now. I'm 51. I can't believe I'm 51. It doesn't feel that way, but from my perspective, like the experience, being able to grow up in Rhode Island, play with some tremendous players. I mean, that Mount team, when I was there, I mean, Derek Chevette was a guy that went to Brown with me. Scotty Hanley was another guy that went to Brown with me. But I mean, there might have been, I'd say the whole team for the most part was probably D1 guys eventually. On top of guys like Matt Schneider and Keith Carney and Capuanos and Gar Snow, guys that made a living in the National Hockey League. So that was a pretty good era of hockey in Rhode Island.
And bringing it back to Brown, 112-year history of the men's hockey program. You're the 15th head coach. That's a pretty good ratio, if I say so. Just being, part of that line of coaches that goes back so far, like you talked about being a part of the program and being a player, but on the bench, I know it's not lost on you of what that means to be one of the 15 that has run this team.
Oh, it's a huge honor, obviously, first and foremost. And like I said, I take a lot of pride in being able to stand behind the bench and lead our group. And I'm blessed that, I've been able to do it for 14 years. I hope I get to do it for another 14 years. Again, we've had ups and downs and good seasons and seasons that weren't as good. I mean, I like to find that consistency, but I will say the people that we get here, when they, like I said, when they wear that uniform, They're going to play hard, and they're going to be intense, and they're going to play with a chip on their shoulder. Again, that's usually the way that you'll see a Brown team. I want people when they walk into the rink that don't know anything about my team to say, "Hey, man, that team's unbelievably gritty, and they play the game extremely, extremely hard with a lot of emotion, a lot of energy." And that's the way I am. That's the way I had to play. Quite honestly, I wasn't a naturally unbelievably gifted guy with the puck or a goal scorer. I was a 5'11" defensive defenseman who had to play a hard-nosed style, because if I didn't, I would never play D1. So for me, I kind of try and make sure that I have those I guess those core elements of each team that we play, and each team that I coach, I should say. But you're right. I mean, 14 years is a long time, but and we've gone through some interesting times with COVID. Now coming out of COVID, and as an Ivy, there's always different elements that you face that some of the scholarship schools don't, but I wouldn't trade it in for anything. I mean, when I was hired, I what I didn't want was when there was a roadblock, when there was something that was in our way. I didn't want to just keel over. I mean, we find a way to go over it, through it, around it. And I still have as much passion today as I did when I was hired 14 years ago. I want the best for Brown hockey. It has little to do with me. I just steer the ship a little bit. We got to make sure we put the guys in situations they can succeed in.
And we'll shift it one time for the last question. The most important thing in my head is I have to know your go-to spot on Federal Hill.
Oh, geez, that's a good one.
I don't know if you have a sponsorship obligation that you have to mention.
No, we don't. I've always liked Andino's. Andino's pretty good. So
that's mine.
Good spot. If I was going out with my wife, there's there's a little place. Massimo's a pretty good spot. It's a newer spot, but I try and get over to Federal Hill when we can. It's amazing. Like when I showed up here, I have two daughters, and they were very young. They were still, prior to preschool. Man, now I got one that's looking at college. Like it's chaos. So I never thought I'd be. I would always look at Bob Gaudet and be like, geez, he just celebrated his 50th. Oh my goodness, he's coaching his own kids, and then oh wait, he's retired. I'm like, oh my God. Like everybody that says it goes fast, it definitively goes fast. Like, and that's why you got to enjoy every moment. Like, and I appreciate every time I get a chance to step on the ice and represent Brown University in the position that I'm in. And again, I try my best, and it's not always perfect. I'm still learning each and every day, and I think that's the beauty of maturing and constantly trying to get better as a coach and as a person. I'm not perfect, but I try and do everything to the best of my ability. And again, that's how I was as a person and a player. And I try and bring those elements each and every time that I step into this office.
Well, Coach, I appreciate your time. Brown men's ice hockey heads back on the road, taking on LIU Saturday and Sunday, both games on ESPN Plus, and then back in conference play December 9th and 10th, Clarkson and St. Lawrence.
Well, hey, I got something to show you though, Nick. Good for the league. That's it. It's not great to look at, but that's the Mayor's Cup trophy. So we'll take that one right back from Schneider and from Hockey East. So again, that was a great night. I mean, obviously they have a hell of a team. Nate does a wonderful job, and he's a really good friend. I grew up with him in the game, and we're both around the same age. And we as assistants, we overlapped a lot when he was at Harvard and I was up at Dartmouth. But we'll take that trophy. Yeah. I don't know where to put it. I guess
you could just hold that on the bench with you every game.
It's been a long time since we've had this. So we'll take it. And I just had to show that. I don't know how many people watch Coffee with the Coach, but maybe that will be that'll draw them in. So
I'll tell you what, I can definitely say, because I have my Rhode Island connections, the Rhode Island landscape is skewed of who watches these videos.
we'll see who actually jumps on here next.
Yeah, we'll load up on the Brown viewership in Providence. They'll be putting it on the TVs at Capriccio's downtown.
Oh yeah. Sounds good, my friend.
All right, good. Coach Brendan Whittet, Brown men's ice hockey again, taking on LIU on ESPN Plus. All ECAC games at home on ESPN Plus in the United States and on Stretch Internet internationally. Coach, thank you for your time.
Thanks. And last thing, I forgot to tell you, we do have a sponsorship. Narragansett Beer. Like we have a beer garden now at the rink. Come on out. And they redid the ring, so it's not as cold as it used to be. So there's a lot of positive energy. That the new administration is doing a wonderful job trying to get more and more people in here. But hey, the fact they came up with the beer garden, it's a good thing. We had it for the first night against Boston College. So hopefully something that's not the only reason people come, but it is a way that you can enjoy the game. So
we'll say me an auditorium where the ice is cold and the beer is colder.
That's right, my friend.
There you go. You can take it. All right. That's been Coffee with a Coach. We'll see you next week.